Welcome back. Welcome to another edition of Nain Shorts, the beanie edition. It's a bit cold and I didn't do my hair, so I'm wearing a beanie today, but never mind all that. We're back at it, back at training here in the, I don't know, what would you call this? The garden of the wandering Ronin. And talking about training and what does it all mean? Where does it all go? And why the hell are we doing it? Well, why is pretty easy. We like it, we enjoy it, we love it. I know I do, and I hope you do as well. And if you do not train, maybe you should start. But this might not be the best video to base off the idea of training, just because I'd like to really talk to more on the ones that have been doing it for a while. Well, what's it all for? And what's the mentality behind martial arts in general? Now, we talk about self-defense, we talk about self-protection, but this weekend I was at Cijo Johnny Oliva's seminar in Brentwood, and if you missed it, sucks for you, but he will be back on the mat eventually, so we'll keep you updated on when that happens again. And he made a comment about martial arts. Now, for those of you who do not know Cijo Johnny Oliva, he created his own system. He has forms from empty hands, kung fu. He has a background in so many other things. But on top of that, he knows over 500 different weapon forms, from long staffs to canes to knives to machetes. So many different things. Ooh, even whips, which self-taught. And and he can show them all. And not only does he have multiple for each weapon, he can also teach the individual. And that really resonates with us in the way that we train, is in an individual form. But he made a comment during a seminar about what martial arts and what it means. Very simply, the art of war. And I think it's a topic that we don't dive into enough, in the sense of accepting where a lot of this stuff came from. And it really was killing your opponent on a battlefield with a blade, a shield, with a spear, or whatever other weaponry we had before the advent of powder and then cannons and firearms and such. But ultimately, the martial arts, the hand-to-hand stuff that we do, comes from a time where people were at war and needed to kill each other. Even Kaju Kempo, while it wasn't a wartime art, it was during a time where people were causing each other physical harm and had to protect themselves. Now, that came about because it was in between wars. It was peace. And because at that time wars were fought more with firearms than they were hand to hand, that translation was a little disconnected. But everything that we do, from the blades, from the hand, from the forms, those all came from a time where we were at war with one another in various countries, and this is all we had to kill each other. Now, why am I bringing that up all of a sudden? I'm not trying to put a negative stigma, and I'm not here to talk about the politics behind the ideologies. No, I just want to get on the same page with everyone and just accept that, yeah, a lot of what we do, as watered down as it may be, as much as it has become a peaceful art, I'm sure we can find its origins in some war-torn land where it was effective enough that the people survived long enough to then pass it on or make a living out of teaching it to others. And now we have the arts that we have today, derivatives of those. But if we continue the idea that the things that we do were intended to kill the person in front of us, how does that affect our training? Just take a moment to ponder that. Whatever your favorite technique, whatever your favorite move is, whatever your favorite art is, could you use the things that you have learned there to take the life of another human being? Whether it's with a weapon or not. With a weapon, it's a little bit more obvious. especially with a blade or even a spear. It's a bit more obvious how you would be able to then impale somebody or eviscerate somebody or cut a vital point where then that person is done. And I'm not suggesting we should go out there and start killing each other. But what happens to our training when we have that mentality to say, okay, how can I use this kata, this pinyon, the movements that I learned in that to attack this one individual? Well, first of all, have we been told or taught that it is possible to use these movements, to use these techniques differently than how they were taught to us to be combative? Because when we talk about application, we're talking about making full contact and stopping that person from harming you. Now, when you don't have a weapon in your hand, yeah, it becomes a bit more difficult, or let me rephrase that. It becomes a bit more difficult to kill somebody the way the moves were taught to us. There's augmentations that would have to happen and different focus on what you do at the tail end of it or at the beginning of it, so that would become a permanent thing. And again, I'm not trying to say we should think about it or work towards harming each other to that degree, but we have discussed in self-defense that sometimes it is necessary to go that far. But when do we start teaching our students those things? When did we as students start learning that reality or that truth? A truth that I do believe governed all martial arts at one point in their history or another. And if we're thinking constantly, how do I go from point A to point B, where B is that person is dead and I'm moving on to my next opponent, hypothetically, would we then start considering that half of the moves that we do really don't amount to anything if our goal is to stop this person from breathing altogether? Would we then have to consider, well, how did we get to this point where we are facing each other off and they're throwing a right hand? Where was the build-up to that? What happened prior to that that ended us here? Or when we start a technique in the middle where we're already making contact and we're going on to another thing, yes. Before I continue, I will say that it is a great way to learn movements, to learn a sequence of events. But ultimately, we're learning that sequence of events so we can get in. Everything that we do is so we can get past whatever that they're doing to us, whether it's swinging, whether it's using a weapon against us, whether it's trying to stab us, or whatever the case may be, whatever harm they're trying to do upon us. That's what we're trying to either circumvent or get around or just go through so we can get to the nitty-gritty and end that conflict. How far we go, of course, will depend on the situation. But if we don't consider the extreme being taking out your opponent completely, then are we missing out on how better to perfect the things that we do? And the movements that we are taught in our classes, that we were taught in the schools that we attended by our instructors who we respect, were they designed for everyone? Or were they based off the originator's way of doing things that then got passed on? And maybe the reason why so many people fall off is because, one, they don't understand what it's meant to become later on. Or two, they physically cannot move that way because they are not the body type of the person that created that art or that created that specific way of moving. But if we think of it then as just a concept, this is an illustration of how to get past a punch, a stab, a kick, or some weapon strike so we can get to a vital, so we can get to ending the fight, so we can do our bit beyond what they're doing. Because ultimately, how good someone is, how poor or bad someone is at any art, is less about the art and more about their determination. And what is their determination? Is their determination to be the most elegant individual performing katas? Then that's what they're going to achieve. If they want to win every trophy at every tournament based on their art, then that's what they're going to learn and achieve. But if your focus is to use everything you have to stay alive in a life or death situation, then will that be what you achieve? I mean, I personally don't want to find out, because that would mean I'd have to be in a life or death situation. But isn't everything that we do in martial arts hypothetical? Aren't we hypothetically training for somebody to give us a right punch to our face so we can do the moves that we were taught? Or a certain type of kick? Or a certain type of angle? Before we actually can do the things that we do? And again, why do we do those movements? Well, because we want to get past that attack to be able to attack them effectively. So why not focus on attacking them effectively and then letting the chips fall where they may? There has to be a base. There has to be a basis of understanding and movements. But once you get past that, aren't we focused on just getting in and finishing that fight? How we go about it is going to change for every person. That's why we have so many different types of arts or focuses. Because some people don't want to take it that far. They want to keep it on a sports level. They want to just be around like-minded people. They want to just study it because they want to understand something different, or even just understand violence in general. But their minds can't get past that idea. And all those different focuses will change how you do the art and what you do with it ultimately. And for me as an individual, I'm preparing for the zombie apocalypse. It sounds stupid, right? But no, I there's truth to that. Isn't that like one of the worst case scenarios? And I'm not trying to get political in any way, shape, or form, but those are the kind of things that I think about. Is like, if I found myself in a place where I truly had to fight for my life, how would I fare? Would I be standing there worried? Oh, is it going to be a right? Is it going to be a left? Are they going to kick? Is there 4 more people around me? Like, what would go through my head in that situation? Or would I have cultivated enough determination to say, fuck it, I'm just going to go in, do as much damage as I can, and move on to the next? And hopefully that's enough. But what if I trained that mentality now? Wouldn't I then find the holes that I need to then cover up, that I'm missing? It's like, oh crap, I died in that scenario. I came in hard, I came in strong, but I was missing this piece. Okay, now I can work on this part. Now I got it covered. Now I go again. Somebody who's even better than the last person. Holy crap, they kicked my ass left and right. I had the determination, they had more skill. Guess what? I got to develop more skill. And little by little I start developing, but it's all under the same idea of survival and what I believe to be the core of every martial art. The art of war. And ultimately, how to survive one. And that really resonated with me this past weekend, and it's something that I've really been thinking about, because is my instructor really that good? Is he really so much better than me that I just can't get through to him? Or do I just have so much respect that I'm not actually trying to take it to that level? And by no means do I intend, oh yeah, I really want to hit him and bloody him up and make sure that he can't get up the next morning. No. But that determination, that thought process, can I go that far? Can I commit enough and stop a hair short of actually doing it physically, but in my head I know that would have worked. That would have gotten through. I would have won that particular bout. And ultimately, that's all I'm trying to do, because again, it's just a hypothetical. Because I actually like my instructor and all the other instructors that I've had. And I wouldn't want to harm them. But if I can't even wrap my head around it, if I ever had to, would I fall short? All the training and all the pain, all the bruises that I've had up until now, what would they mean if I can't even use it when I need it? Because I stopped myself short of that thought process. So this is what I've been considering lately, and how it's going to affect the way that I work on my art. For me personally as an individual, and more importantly, the focus in which I'm going to teach the upcoming students. Why am I showing them what I'm showing them? What's the purpose beyond that lesson? And am I teaching them to look for that purpose beyond that lesson? Because if I don't, then they're just going to ever do as much as I show them. And one day they might just get tired of that and quit. But if I can get them to think for themselves, make up their own mind on how far they want to go and how far they're willing to go, and maybe illustrating some of the pitfalls of not going far enough, not taking it to that degree, in a controlled environment where there is no malice, where no one is trying to harm them or injure them in any way. But that's what they're there to train for. So why wouldn't I do that? And now that I'm thinking about it, how could I do it even better? So, just one of those thoughts, folks. Again, I don't know if this is more geared for those that train on a regular basis, but I would love to hear your feedback on it. Where is your mentality when you train, and when did that mentality change? How did it affect the way that you perform the things and the way that you teach other students? Because I can bet that it has changed the way you do things and the way you think of things. But how? That's to you, the individual. So I definitely would like to hear from you. Thank you very much for joining me on another one of Nain's Shorts. Till the next one. 3, 2, 1, cut!